the grapes. Check this out.
Hello and welcome back to Youth Group Reunion Tour, the podcast that unpacks the Christian cultural touchstones that you grew up with in the 90s and 2000s. I'm your host. My name is Jared.
And is Mikey B. Your other host.
And we're excited to be back after a semi-brief hiatus, I guess.
Unplanned hiatus.
Yeah, so it's been a while since we've put an episode out. It's been a while since we recorded one. We just got a little bit busy, but hopefully, you've been able to muddle through without us, releasing our episodes. But we do have some of the episodes in the can. And by that I mean we have one. So we have that to look forward to coming up, hopefully. And the episode that we're doing today, I think, is very seasonally appropriate, and it should be something we probably should have gotten to a while ago. But we're excited to do it now. So, Mike, why don't you introduce what our topic for today is going to be?
Sure, but before we introduce the topic, I'll explain the backlog. So when we started this podcast, we had a great backlog where no one had even heard of this podcast. You know, there was zeros of listeners instead of dozens of listeners. And so we had a deep, deep backlog. Before we started it, we had 6 or 7 episodes like done, ready to go, lined up, ready to edit, release, boom, boom, boom. We're good.
Which, by the way, it's like our year anniversary of releasing the first episode, like as of a couple days ago. I saw it.
Yeah. Well, good times. I just want to say that we had some stuff in the backup. It just didn't quite turn out exactly how we wanted due to difficulty in editing or the fact that we listened back to it and we didn't like it that much anymore.
Yeah,
or
I would say,
we thought we could have done better.
I would say we have at least 3 or 4 episodes that we never released that we probably will to some extent at some point, but just they are really long, so they require a lot of editing, or like one of them is kind of short. We need to add like an addendum to make it a little bit longer, and other ones you just haven't gotten around to posting. But we do have some hope.
I'm going to post a challenge to our listeners, and I'm going to give them the topics. They can choose their own adventure here, and I hope they choose wisely. We have Apocalypse, the movie. We have
technically it's Apocalypse 3, I think, right?
Apocalypse.
It's 2, the one with Gary Busey. It's the one with Gary Busey. That's the thing that's important.
Yeah. So Apocalypse 2. We have Bible Man, which was both of those were video episodes, which made it very difficult to do. We have Sixpence None the Richer, which is admittedly
that one was thrown together. It was thrown together. It was. We were like, we could do this.
Yeah. Hey, let's not influence the audience vote here, right? Let's give them a say. And if someone says, "Wow, I really want to hear that one. That sounds amazing." We did one where we reviewed Christian rap songs.
I don't even remember that one.
Yeah, that was a very early episode.
I don't remember that one at all.
Well, we did the hardest Christian rap songs. If you remember that one.
Yeah.
Which I still think those songs are really good, but I don't know if it's gonna,
Yeah.
We got to do more research on that as well. So, and then we also have, we have a youth group games one, which we never released, which kind of, was the James Part 2 one, if you recall. There's another one out there to do, which we listened to it and we said, we kind of covered the best ground in the first half and didn't need to put on the second half again. But yeah, I think we have some choices here. So
no, hold on. There's another one that you forgot. So we had a follow-up to the Reliant K episode where we had Mike's cousin, Mandy, come on, who was like a diehard Reliant K fan, like from when she was in middle school till this day, come on and tell us, like, school us about modern day Relient K songs that we maybe were not quite so familiar with. And I think what we wanted to do with that one is like we didn't want to just like release like 2 episodes about Relient K like really like in a quick succession. So we were kind of holding it. And in the meantime, since then, I have been to a live Relient K show. So I think we need to record like at least a brief addendum where I can give like the lowdown of what it was like to be there before we can release that one.
Yeah, I just didn't want to look too thirsty, right?
Yeah.
We had the first episode was Reliant K. Reliant K commented on our first episode teaser. We made friends with another Reliant K podcast, and I didn't want to fly too close to the sun, although it gives us a lot of good content. I didn't want people to think, oh, this is that podcast where it's basically, the Reliant K podcast part 2. That's just try to keep it a little bit different, just to keep the interest there and keep the thrill alive, so you don't know what's going to happen. Too many music episodes next to each other, too many movie episodes. We gotta, kind of mix things up. Yeah. So that being said, if you really, 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 really want to hear one of those, comment on our videos or comment on our
posts, an email.
Not videos. Send us an email. Let us know which one of those we will set free, and we will pardon those at some point in time. Maybe in January we will, release the ugly, messy self, not our best self. But so with that being said, we have a topical episode today. I love holiday themes, and it's a good way to close out the year. The people have asked for this specifically, not via email, but in person. They have asked for us to do something on Veggietales, and I think what better way to close out the year, a successful podcast year, being in the top 50% of podcasts.
We have in the way they do that Spotify end of year thing, they do one for like the thing that hosts our podcast through Anchor or whatever. And Mike, do you remember I sent it to you and I was like, this can't possibly be true. And it was like we were in the top like 80th percentile for like most followers, and I was like, there's no way that's true. But
yeah, I don't know. I think that's Spotify's year-end review. They're kind of phoning it in. They just made us feel better. Like, maybe they included us in the wrong category, like maybe 80th percentile of youth group podcasts, perhaps. I don't know what it was. But anyways, this episode is about Veggietales, the toy who saved Christmas. I wanted to get it out before I forgot what the topic was again.
So specifically, this is the Christmas special episode. And I think we're going to Veggietales, I think, is a very rich area for us. I think we could come back to it multiple times. But as we said earlier, we don't want to try to like overload people with Veggietales content or episodes that are about the same bands over and over. We want to try and have some room to breathe. So I think it's very likely that we will come back to do like a Larry Boy episode or Rack Shack and Benny or some of the other ones. But we because it was Christmas, we were like, we're going to do the Veggietales Christmas special.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, Jared. It was really, really hard for me to watch this Veggietales episode after having watched Salty and Bible Man. I mean, it is really night and day. Like this felt like this could have been, a real, not that those shows weren't real, but I definitely wouldn't find them accidentally, digging through the fire stick. You know what I mean? Like, I would not have stumbled upon Salty and watched it and thought, oh, this is a professional operation. Whereas,
what I would say with Salty the Singing Songbook is like, it is one of those things that I feel like Veggietales has like a wide range, like people that aren't Christians know about it. But Salty the Singing Songbook is so like niche that anyone that like knows about it, if they saw that we had an episode about it, they would be like, "Oh boy, buckle up! I'm ready for this." But I think the market is smaller, but it's like a very dedicated few that would really know about it.
Definitely. So for me, for Veggietales, I went to Catholic school. We were Catholic growing up, and so my first interaction with VeggieTales was at Catholic school, in probably elementary school. The first one I actually did remember watching was the bunny one with Nebuchadnezzar, the Rack Shack and Benny with the chocolate bunny. So I was immediately surprised right away, kind of as we stepped through this. Just like my first impression was like, oh man, it's self-referential. There they go. It referencing the Veggieverse right away. I'm like, here we go. I hope I remember this stuff. So what was the first one you watched? Is that kind of the order that most people went in?
So I didn't have most of the time when I was watching VeggieTales, it was because it was being shown at church. So it would be something like we would have like kids' church where like in the middle of the service they'd be like, all right, all the kids leave and we're going to do the sermon now. And the kids I think we would go up to like third grade or something. So it'd be like, everyone from ages 4 to like 9 or whatever a third grader is would go, and I think they would probably break it up. I think it was like first through third and then everyone else that was younger than that. And they'd take us to like another room in the church, either like our church had 2 sanctuaries at one. Originally it had one and then they built another one. So then the old sanctuary they would take us there sometimes, where we had a bunch of classrooms upstairs that we'd go to. And they would do like a little kind of like a little sermon for us that was, like not, it was meant for kids, or like they would get out like the felt board and they would get the characters up there and stuff, which I feel like we could do an episode on felt boards by itself. I feel like that's gotta be, or at least, something that goes into it a little bit more. But when they would finish sometimes, or as like part of like the time, they would like put on a VeggieTales movie, because it was like, all right, we did this, but we still got 20 minutes to kill before the sermon's over or whatever. So we're going to watch Larry Boy or Rack Shack and Benny or whatever it was. And so that was, I think, where I saw most of VeggieTales. We didn't like have it at home, except for I remember I really wanted the Larry Boy VHS, and it's because I was like, Larry Boy is cool because he's like, because it was like all the VeggieTales stories were like about the Bible, and I was like, this one's not about the Bible because he's a superhero, and it was just So that one I was like, I remember I had the VHS for the first Larry Boy. I think there's been multiple episodes of it since then, but. So that's definitely the one I've seen the most, is the Larry Boy one. I vaguely remember this one, and I remember them for sure showing the Rack Shack and Benny one at church, and that's probably the one that I'm most familiar with, apart from Larry Boy and stuff. So I'd say that's probably like where my VeggieTales history lies, is mainly in those.
Yeah. See, I didn't actually remember watching this one when it came out. Yeah. This must have been part of the later crop, because I remembered Larry Boy and the Pirates. Okay, really? That's surprising, because I didn't remember this one.
If my research was correct, let me see. I got the Wikipedia tab open. Let's go find out. Okay. So I know that, let's see, it was released in 96, October 22nd, 1996. Smart. They got it out before Christmas, so they had time to build to it. Let me see if it says. Okay, so the previous, maybe it's not the fourth one. The previous episode was the David and Goliath one, Dave and the Giant Pickle.
Yep.
And then the one before that was Rack Shack and Benny, which I believe is the third one. So this was the fifth one that they released.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it says Rack Shack and Benny is the fourth episode of VeggieTales. So this is the sixth one. My mistake. All right. So we've got it figured out. This is the sixth episode of VeggieTales, is the Christmas story.
Mm-hmm. My point was, I just think I missed it, or maybe I just watched it and I didn't really remember it, because I remembered the ones that had the songs to them, and I remembered the songs probably more than the cartoons actually themselves, because those songs were really some serious earworms. The Cebu and the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything and stuff like that. Even Larry Boy. Those are banger after banger, in my opinion, of like a really well
Yeah.
crafted, not quite annoying pop song.
Yeah, I remember just like being a little kid, and we would be watching them, and then they're like, "And now it's time for silly songs with Larry." And it was like, "All right, here we go. We got to the main attraction. Here we go." I was like, "This is what I'm here for."
Yeah. So there is silly songs with Larry in this episode, but before we get into it, we'll kind of step through it step by step. Just it's a very short plot. It's 30 minutes, not a lot of
Yes.
conflict. To be honest, it's pretty straightforward. As most kids show are, and then we'll kind of talk through from the beginning and make some commentary, and then review it.
Yeah. All right. So I've got like a brief outline. So I'm going to give you like a rundown. You've presumably listened to episodes of our podcast before. You know how this works. I'm going to give a brief overview of the plot. And we're going to give our insights as we go. So this episode of Veggietales is called "The Toy That Saved Christmas." So the episode starts off with some random like non sequitur where we're like hearing the tail end of a story, and it's like, and then I said, "Hey, lady, that's not, that ain't no bag of lettuce or something." It's like some random like end like snippet of a conversation that they end the story with. And the framework of this story is that it's like a grandfather is telling a bedtime story to his granddaughter, and he says, "All right, I'll tell you a story about the town that didn't get Christmas." And she's like, "What do you mean they didn't get Christmas?" And he's like, "Oh no, they had Christmas. They just didn't understand it." And so he says that there was this town called Dinkletown, which is a ridiculous name. And to be honest, calling it a town is generous because when they show him roll up to this town in quotes, it's at best a cul-de-sac. There are 5 houses there, maybe. Mike, how many houses are in this town? 5, maybe?
Yeah, there was not a lot, and the world building, it felt very small because you recognize all of the recycled Veggietales character models.
Which I will say, as much as I remember loving Veggietales growing up, the animation and voice acting has not aged well. It is like it's like if you go and watch like old cartoons and stuff from the 80s and stuff that are like hand drawn and animated, they still look good because they have like a style to them. Like this early CGI, it doesn't look good. But I remember at the time thinking, I was like, this is the coolest. I was like, this, because it looked like a video game, or rather it looked like what I wanted video games to look like. I was like, oh man, could you imagine if a video game looked like this? But yeah,
it was
looking
higher
back,
quality than the Sega Saturn or whatever was the game system at the time back in 96 or 97.
Yeah. So yeah, they and yeah, the voice acting is also it seems like they either didn't have the budget to like hire professional voice actors. They were just like, get someone's kid in here to be this voice or whatever. But so they let's see. So the grandpa comes to deliver a package, and the kids in this town, like, they're amped up. So the grandpa is a mailman, and they're like excited because they're like, hey, if this guy is showing up, it means he's bringing presents. And so they sing a song called "I Can't Believe It's Christmas," which is basically them just so excited to get presents. And all the whole time they're like mobbing him while he's trying to deliver this package, and it like gets thrown all around town and like up on the house of something, and then he gets like run over by it. And eventually it just like randomly shoots into the house he's supposed to deliver it to, and he kind of brushes his hands off and says, "Job done," and he heads out. So they open up.
So I just want to mention the song, though. So like that's the theme song of this entire thing, right? They kind of reprise it several times in true musical style fashion. Like it opens up with like the theme that
Yeah.
kind of carries through the rest of the play. I thought it was kind of, not gonna lie, a little mediocre for a Veggietales song. It was kind of
Yeah.
forgettable. I mean,
I
I
think
don't know.
there's like three different reprises of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean it's fine. It's not, the Pirates who don't do anything.
Right,
Um,
right.
what could be? So I mean, I think it's fine. It's serviceable for what it's doing. Like that. Um, so they sing that song, and the kids go inside, and they're just like, I know we think this is a Christmas present, but we're just going to open it anyway. We're opening it, and they open it, and it turns out to be like a Christmas tree, this real futuristic Christmas tree, and it like unfolds and sets itself up.
It's like a
And
Transformer Christmas tree, basically.
yes, and as soon as it sets up, it immediately like starts broadcasting a commercial like from the tree. Like it gets set up, and then immediately they see this commercial on TV, and it's a commercial for a toy called Buzz-saw Louie, and it's a toy that has a buzz saw for a hand, and he knows the true meaning of Christmas. And if you press his nose, he'll tell you it. And it's basically like, hey, tell your mom you want more toys. Hey, did you hear that Billy has more toys than you? You should get some more.
Yeah.
Christmas is
I
about
felt
getting toys.
I felt this part was pretty funny. I mean, I kind of enjoyed the unexpectedness of the fact that it's not just a toy. It looks like a doll, but as a buzzsaw for an arm, like that's kind of funny and wacky, but also kind of hilarious in context. And then just the fact that, he was going to tell you the true meaning of Christmas, like it is even more over the top than what you expect. It's like the true meaning of Christmas is to whine to your parents and ask for more toys or something like that. Like I found that to be pretty funny, but also the irony of that was not lost on me because I watched this on YouTube and like right in the middle where he's like where they press his nose, I got an ad for like Best Buy and like
Oh yeah,
Samsung frame TVs or something like that. So I just thought it was kind of funny watching it on YouTube, and it
yeah.
supposedly is for YouTube Kids, and I thought YouTube Kids doesn't have ads, or maybe it wasn't actually YouTube Kids, but um,
Maybe it's I don't know how YouTube Kids works, but maybe you have to have like I presume you have like a normal YouTube account. Maybe you have to specifically have a YouTube Kids account, and maybe
yeah,
that's how it works. Who knows? If you know,
yeah.
if you
I
know,
don't
listener,
know.
if you know, let us know. Let us know how YouTube Kids works.
I just want to comment on it because of the hilarity of the fact that
Yeah,
he's talking kind of like from an expected Christmas is about consumerism angle, and I just get bombarded with ads telling me to buy stuff in the middle of them
yeah.
watching it. I'm just wondering if there's some
Buy
kid
more
out there.
toys.
Yeah,
Buy more toys.
I'm just wondering if there's some kid out there who asked their mom to buy more Clash of Clans gems because they got an ad in the middle of a video telling them the true meaning of Christmas is to annoy your mom and buy more things, right? Like
Yeah.
it was just very funny to me. I don't know if that was anyone else, but it certainly made me think about the medium of how watching it on VHS versus now kids these days are
Oh yeah.
probably watching it on YouTube, and
Yeah.
I've never really thought about, I guess, maybe the fact that they are listening to a message about why Christmas isn't about buying stuff while they're
Yeah.
being told to buy more stuff in 15-second ad breaks. Like I just thought it was kind of ironic. But anyways, so Buzzsaw Larry, great toy, great
Yeah.
joke. I was a fan.
So, so the next thing that happens here is the kids immediately start whining to their parents and like begging for toys. And the one kid goes, "Billy has more toys than me," and his dad goes, "Who's Billy?" And he says, "I don't know, but he's got more toys than me." And I thought that was a pretty funny joke. Um,
Yeah, they just got programmed, right? They,
yeah,
they don't know who Billy is, and it doesn't matter because they want it.
and and then it zooms out to the nearby toy factory, and there's an evil villain watching through a telescope, and it is very clear that this is like the villain. it's like the guy that looks like a pickle that has like warts or bumps on his face that is the villain in the Rack Shack and Benny uh, video, and or at least the character model for that. And he's also Goliath in the the David and Goliath story or whatever. But he reveals that his master plan is that in order for him to have a good Christmas, he needs to sell a lot of toys, and so he's going to make these kids beg for toys so that he can sell a lot and have a good Christmas or whatever. And his sidekick says to him, he's like, "Oh, you sure are like shrewd, boss," or whatever. He says he's wily. He says, "You sure are wily," and he's like, "You're much more wily than your cousin who runs the chocolate bunny factory that I used to work in." Or I don't know if it's his cousin or his brother or whatever, but he reveals that he's related to the villain from the Rack Shack and Benny video.
Yeah. It was very explicitly in universe in case the kids didn't pick up on the fact that they're exactly the same person. It's like, there's a connectivity between Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and also this Christmas story, just for fun. It was deep lore, world building.
Then it again shows the kids in town and they're crying, but the way that they are crying is they're not actually crying. They're going, "Wah, wah."
Like a baby doll if you poke it.
Yeah. Like I was like, I understand. Like they couldn't get like one of these kids, these voice actors, like just cry a little bit, do like sniffle. They're like, "Nah, I'm just gonna go wah wah wah."
I don't know. I think are they supposed to be? Those are the peas, right? They were the peas.
It was the carrots, I believe, are the ones I saw that were doing.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I have no explanation then. Sorry.
Yeah, if it was the peas, you had it, but the carrots, no way.
I don't know. I was trying to think like maybe there's some sort of clever angle with like snap peas or like some sort of pun there, but probably not.
So the next thing that happens is it says that they're like that night there was like a toy that was defective, and when he was tested or whatever, like you pressed his nose and he said like the true meaning of Christmas is getting toys. He was like he thought to himself, he became sentient and thought to himself, I don't know about that. I think that's wrong. That doesn't seem like the true meaning of Christmas.
Yeah, and he looks at the star like longingly, like he becomes conscious. Like
he awakens, like that AI at Google or whatever.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about this, Jared. I guess maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I'm just trying to understand the universe here, of Veggietales, because you have sentient vegetables, and now they've established that under certain conditions, they said he was, quote, wired wrong, but he was wired wrong and became sentient, and he spends the rest of the movie searching for the meaning of Christmas, only to be revealed that the meaning of Christmas, is Jesus, right? The birth of Jesus. And, they go to the giving thing too, but they definitely explicitly talk about Jesus. So that being said, I have major questions about this universe, right? If these veggies, do the veggies have a soul?
Well, my question is Jesus in Veggietales a vegetable? is the Jesus of Veggietales a vegetable? Like, did he come and die to save vegetables? And if so, did he die for this toy? Because there's a lot of theological questions that have been raised.
Yeah.
Also,
let me just ask this. I have to get this off my chest because you brought it up, and now I'm thinking about it. So, if these veggies have a soul, right? Are these veggies in heaven? Right? Do they go to heaven? Like, is there hope to be restored someday for veggies and toys? Yeah. So, like, everything somewhat sentient here, like, has a soul, right? They have original sin, I suppose. Yeah. But also, is there a veggie heaven? And also, is there a veggie hell, right? Like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of veggies that want to send to veggie hell. I'm just saying.
The linchpin of this is whether or not Jesus in this universe is a person or a vegetable. Because if he's a vegetable, I think it works the same way as in our universe.
It's like a parallel universe.
If he's a person, then it has raised some serious, possibly heretical things about whether or not Jesus can save vegetables. I don't know. I think this is beyond the scope of our podcast, Mike. I don't think we're prepared to address this question.
No, I just want to bring it up because, it implied that, like, I get Toy Story where the rules are kind of established or whatever. There's no, I'm thinking of this song, like, If the Cartoons Got Saved, right? It's like the entire, now we have to worry about, like, witnessing to Woody and Buzz over here. but only the sentient versions because the rest of them are just made for the wood chipper,
Is it all food or is it just vegetables? Did Jesus come to save the fruits too? I feel like
that's bad news for Bob.
Okay. Hold on. Let me pitch this. This is what I think the lore is. So I think the fruits and vegetables are the Jews and the Gentiles.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that because the veggies, the vegetables, are supposed to be like in America. that they're the Gentiles.
Please don't go where I think that my mind just went right now.
Well, I don't know. I hope I
hope not.
And in this case, Jesus must be a fruit because he was a Jew. And if the Jews and the Gentiles are represented by the fruits and the vegetables, and Jesus came to save the Jew and the Gentile and the fruit and the vegetable, then Jesus must be a fruit. And if that's the case, what fruit do we think Jesus is?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't stop thinking about the vegetables and their difference. Like the idea. That can't possibly be what they're thinking about, right? Like you're just kind of interpreting this in theology. Yeah.
You have opened the door for this theological discussion, and now I want to know what fruit Jesus was in this universe.
Yeah, I don't know what Are there any kind of fruit?
I feel like he's got to be an apple, right? I feel like that's like the king of fruits.
Yeah, but the apple is, it kind of connects to the garden, right? So it's like the knowledge of good and evil. Would you really be an apple that's responsible for the fall of humanity?
Okay, but hold on. Listen to this. Jesus came as a man, and he was uncorrupted. So he comes as an apple, and this time he's not corrupted.
An apple with no worms inside.
Correct.
Okay.
This is where I think I've landed. I'm sure there's probably. I feel like there's probably some Veggietales episode that addresses this where they show Jesus and it's just like Larry or whatever, like with a robe on or something.
Yeah.
But in my mind, having no knowledge of the canon that Veggietales has established in the years since then, Jesus is an apple.
Yeah, I guess I can go with apple. I was thinking pomegranate, but that's probably better for Abraham. He had many seeds, so like it kind of fits there. I really am I'm struggling to hit that metaphor, especially just limiting it to fruit, just like, I don't know, maybe like, I don't know. Banana, I don't know.
I mean, I think I stumbled into it. I think it's apple for the reason that I stated that he comes and the apple in the Garden of Eden that corrupted them. He comes and he's uncorrupted and he lives a perfect life and is made into a pie or however he's killed in the. Do you think he's still crucified as an apple or is made into a pie? I don't know. Is this sacrilegious? Are we?
Get Phil Vischer on the phone and we'll ask him straight up if this is part of the Veggietales universe because everyone wants to know. So anyways, so there's this toy who becomes sentient. He looks at the stars and wonders if there's more to life than just being a toy. being bought and sold for fun.
And
Does that
so
mean that toy was a slave? Just want to throw that out there too. Like he's
wow.
basically like he's sentient, right? Like
Well,
he's
what I would say is I don't think the other toys are sentient. And
okay.
so I think you could say that he is a special case where the other toys certainly are not slaves. They're just toys.
Okay.
But possibly because his consciousness has awakened that he
Yeah.
is possibly a slave, but he immediately escapes.
He's the Neo of the Matrix, basically.
Yeah.
Like
He takes the red
he's
pill.
the chosen one. Yeah.
All right, so at this point, this is when Silly Songs with Larry is makes its appearance in the episode. So this song that he is singing is called "Oh Santa," and the premise of it is that I presumably people listening to this have seen a Silly Songs with Larry before. It's like he's on the sound stage and they have like those props around him, and in the background you can see there's like snow falling through a window, and there's like a hand off stage. It's like shaking the snow out of a box and stuff. And he's singing a song about how he's waiting for Santa to come, which I want to say mixed message for the message that this video is trying to get across, where they're like, hey, Christmas isn't all about presents. By the way, here's a song where Larry is waiting for Santa to bring him presents.
Yeah, it was kind of mixed. I did pick up on that as well. Like, especially because it's smash cut to the toy staring at the stars and wondering if there's something more. Maybe they're trying to like develop empathy for the other side of like, oh yeah, I like toys too. Like connection. But your point is noted. It's a song about primarily Santa.
Yeah, and so he's waiting. He's got these cookies ready for Santa, and he hears a knock at his door, and he's like, "All right, Santa's here." He opens the door up, and it is a bank robber. And the bank robber's like, "Hey, I'm here to rob this bank." And Larry says, "This isn't a bank, but if you want to come in, you can have one of my cookies. They're for Santa, but I'll share one with you." And he's like, "All right." So
and he sings a nice harmony line on top of it.
Yeah, then they sing like the confrontation from Les Mis, where they're both singing their own song over top of each other, and then they get another knock at the door, and he goes and answers it, and it's a Viking, and the Viking's like, "Hey, I'm here to pillage, I'm here to steal your land and stomp on your chickens and burn something down or whatever." And Larry's like, "Once again, I don't have any land or chickens, but I do have a cookie, and I will share it with you." And so the Viking comes in, and then they do the same thing where they all sing like their motivation over top of each other at the same time. There's a third knock at the door. He's only got one cookie left, so he's like, "This has to be Santa." He opens it up, and I thought this was really funny. The guy's like, "I'm from the IRS," and Larry just slams the door in his face.
It's funny because the IRS inspector says, "Larry, you have over $600 on your Venmo transactions. Unfortunately, you owe that last cookie." Very sad. But predicted the future, certainly.
Anyway, so he Larry slams the door in his face, and he comes back, and then suddenly Santa has appeared. He's come down the chimney, which I'm not sure why Larry was watching the door, but and Santa is there, and it's Bob. It's Bob in a Santa outfit, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I've been waiting for you. I got you this cookie or whatever." And then Bob looks over, and the robber and the Viking are still there. And he's like, "Hey, that's my belt, and that's my hat." And he's like, so the robber had stolen his hat, and the Viking had Santa's belt. And he's like, "Nobody messes with Santa." And Bob chases them out of the room. And then at that point, the IRS agent comes back, and he looks at the cookie on the plate, and he says, "Did you claim that?" And Larry like shrugs no, and so he just takes it and leaves, and then that's the end of the skit. That's it. That's the whole thing.
For silly songs with Larry, I found this one was a little bit lacking. I mean, agree,
Yeah.
disagree. Like, I felt like this
Oh, I
was
mean,
not the best silly songs with Larry.
no, it definitely not. It was. There were parts of it that I thought were funny,
Mhm.
but it was not like, because he has the song.
The
He's got,
hairbrush, you know.
yeah, the hairbrush. There's one about a burger, I think, right? Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a lot of other better songs than this one. But um, at this point, it cuts back to our main story. So Bob, Larry, and Junior Asparagus are out sledding, and they stumble upon the escaped toy. And my first thought here was, I always thought that Bob and Larry were like adults or like 20 somethings or like teenagers,
Mhm.
and they're very clearly meant to be like kids here. Because I was, when they first showed them, I was like, why are these adults hanging out with this little kid? And then later, like, they go somewhere and they get referred to as boys and stuff. And I was like, did you think that? Did you think that Bob and Larry were supposed to be older, or was I just mistaken my whole life?
Yeah, I thought they were kind of like the stand-in for the youth leaders or something like that, because they're
Yes,
always
that's
leading
exactly
you in a
what it was.
song or leading you in a lesson or a message. So it's kind of like
Yeah,
the self-insert from the youth leaders or the
yeah,
pastors or whoever that is, right? Because they're
yeah,
they're the ones with knowledge, they're the one who learn the lessons, and they encourage you to learn the lessons. They don't really experience it to where they're supposed to be the audience, in my opinion. I just saw them as
yeah.
teachers.
That I think you hit the nail on the head of like that must be what I was like reading into, where I was like, Bob is the head pastor and Larry is the youth pastor, and they are adults, and that's why they are always doing this. And then they're like, I was like, it's weird that they're out with this kid, and then they go. um, well, anyway, let us know if you always thought Larry and Bob were adults, or if you knew they were kids, and I'm dumb. Um, so
Played Santa.
next
He
thing,
played Santa. That's
yeah,
that's
exactly,
a
yeah,
role of an older adult to play.
yes,
No
yeah,
kid dresses up in a Santa costume. I don't care how you know chubby you are and
yeah,
how gray your beard is at
yeah.
6 years
Plus,
old.
they're
No
like
kid is playing
bigger.
Santa.
They're bigger than like the characters who are clearly supposed to be children, like
Right.
Junior Asparagus, and like I'm sure she has a name, but the girl that's a carrot, and like the peas that are kids, like those are all clearly children, and Bob and Larry are bigger than them. So I was like, they must be adults. But
Yeah.
so what happens here is they find it, and Bob's like, hey, I know someone who is really smart, and he probably oh, and then the sorry, I skipped a part. They're like, hey, look, it's Buzz-saw Louie. This is cool. Let's press his nose. So they press it, and he says like, you know, get more toys or whatever. And they're like, the true meaning of Christmas. And he wakes up and he says, that's not what Christmas is about. And they're like, what? Who said that? And he's like, it's me, the toy. And they're like, well, what is Christmas about? And he's like, I don't know, but it can't be that. And that's when Bob says, I know someone who might be able to tell us.
I thought that was
So
kind of a funny scene because you're clearly meant to think it's the narrator or something because that voice happens off screen.
yeah,
And it was kind of like almost, but not quite breaking the fourth wall where it was they're saying something and then you're led to believe it's the narrator saying that, but it turns out it was actually the toy in the snow being sentient. Like I thought that was kind of
yeah,
a funny visual gag.
it happens the same way that like Woody or Buzz speak in Toy Story, or like when you pull Woody's cord, his mouth doesn't move and it says the thing, but then when he's talking himself, his mouth is moving and stuff. And that's what it was like. Like they pressed it,
Mhm.
and he didn't do anything, and it just like said the thing from like his voice box or whatever. And then he continues to talk in and tell them the real meaning of Christmas must be found. And
Mhm.
so they
It's an adventure.
yeah. It's an adventure that is a question that is very quickly solved. The first person they go to solves it for them. So they go to the grandpa who has been telling the story the whole time, and they ask him, and he's like, "As a matter of fact, I do know the meaning of Christmas." And he brings them in, and he gets out the Bible, and he reads them a passage. I think it's from Luke. I don't know if they said where it was from, but I think it's the Luke, the story from Luke. And one of the things they changed some of the words, so the instead of saying like the baby will be in swaddling clothes, they say he'll be in baby clothes. which I'm sure it was changed. Like, kids won't know what that word means, so we'll just change it to baby clothes. But I just thought it was funny to imagine like baby Jesus in like a little kid onesie, like it says like daddy's little savior or something on it.
I thought it was like, I thought you were going to say it'd be funny to imagine baby Jesus like with a comically oversized sweatshirt or something like that on.
Yeah.
It's like way too big for him, something to where he looks obviously, like it hand-me-downs or something like that to where it's not baby clothes. I also noticed that I don't believe they actually said they were reading from the Bible. I think they said they were reading from an old book. Did you pick up on that, or am I reading into that too much?
I didn't. That's possible.
Yeah.
I didn't. I don't remember. It's very possible that they said that, which may be why they didn't say this is from Luke,
Right.
or at least I don't think they gave the reference. But
Yeah. Anyways, it sounded to me like the creators of Veggietales were trying to use this as like a witnessing tool for necessarily people who really actually weren't familiar with the Christian story. So like
interesting.
kind of
They're trying to like make it like more broadly accessible to like not say that this is from the Bible. It's like it's from an old book, and like here, interesting.
Exactly. That's just my thought, because the audience is supposed to self-insert as the toy seeking meaning and something like that. To them, like, no, it's not about stuff. But if it's not about stuff, what is it? You're kind of like on that journey of adventuring, discovery with that character who's like basically the protagonist at this point, other than the grandpa, who you're not supposed to see yourself as because he's already wise. He's got it figured out. You're the one on the journey. That's just my 2 cents. So I just thought it was odd that like maybe they originally said Bible and decided to say an old book as kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference, but I don't really know that they needed to be tongue-in-cheek, because we're talking about Jesus here.
Yeah, I was like, if that was what they were trying to do, is like they kind of like blew that immediately when they're like, in this old book that told about how Jesus was born. I was like, what book could that be?
Exactly, right. But anyways, it seemed a little weird and awkward to me, but it is what it is.
It's not like they were like, a baby was born that was, came to save all of veggie kind or whatever. All right, so the next thing that happens, so now Larry, Bob, Junior Asparagus, and Buzz-saw Louie, they all know the truth. And they're like, we have to tell everyone else. Like, we gotta spread the news. So they go back to town and they realize, like, oh, this doesn't just affect our town. Like, it was a commercial that was broadcast to everyone. So they're like, well, how are we going to do that? And Junior comes up with a plan. He's like, we got to get to the toy factory. And he says, I've got a plan. So they go and they break into the toy factory, and they sneak through it. And they sneak past all these penguins and stuff that are guarding it. And they break into the on-site TV studio at the toy factory.
Yes,
and the plan.
Go ahead.
And the plan is they're going to record. They're like, a commercial got us into this mess. A new commercial can get us out.
Yeah, I was going to say they plan to have a Max Headroom-esque incident where they go on pirate broadcast. Are you familiar with the Max Headroom incident?
Oh, yeah.
By the way? Okay,
I am. Why don't you give a brief history of it for anyone that doesn't know what you're talking about?
Yeah. So basically, sometime it had to been the late '80s, I think, maybe
It
early
was,
'90s, but
it was
it
the
was in
80s
Chicago.
in Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Chicago station that all of a sudden, during a normal broadcast, it got interrupted by someone wearing a mask of the character Max Headroom and just saying these like ridiculous things that you could barely hear. And, he basically pirated, he was broadcasting his own signal that people in their homes could, got interrupted by this weird character
And he,
who is broadcasting crazy, crazy
and he,
stuff.
he did it for like not very long, like what,
Yeah, like
30
2 minutes.
seconds or
Yeah. Mhm.
and it was like multiple times during the same broadcast. Like he broke in and they like kicked him out, and then he was able to come back and do it or whatever.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. You can check it out on Wikipedia. There's a Wikipedia page about it.
And on
Um,
YouTube, but they never actually found out who was responsible, which is the more interesting part. But basically, the
yeah,
theory
yeah,
was it had to have been a setup kind of like Junior Asparagus, where they had a station where someone who knew how to work it and how to
yeah.
broadcast, because Junior Asparagus doesn't really know how to broadcast a commercial. It's a lot harder, especially I don't know. I'm impressed that they
Yeah.
were able to figure that out. Let's just say, because
Hey,
it seemed like it was tailor made.
he said just point and shoot. I'll get the rest done.
Exactly
Um,
right. It was pretty
so
impressive
maybe yeah.
for a
Uh,
vegetable.
so they get there, they sit down, and I don't think they know what commercial means because this is like certainly not a commercial because it starts broadcasting immediately.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's like it cuts to like the house of the people, and it's like their TV is just on the test channel. Like it's just like turned on to the channel with like all the like the colors and like the tone on it or whatever, and they start broadcasting and like immediately it shows up on it. And so Junior and Buzz-saw Louie, they share the true story of Christmas. And then Junior, he says something. He's like, just to be clear, toys themselves are not bad, and I have lots of toys and I like them, and they're not bad. It's just that you shouldn't, want them and be bothering your parents about it. Which I think is like they're like, we got to make sure that kids don't know that toys are evil. It's just like we got to make sure that it's like their heart attitude that they understand is the problem, and not necessarily like they didn't want kids to feel guilty for like getting toys at Christmas or whatever.
Yeah, they didn't want to have a mass riot from, kids throwing out their
Yeah.
Furbies or whatever.
Tickle Me Elmo in '96, I think.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. Did you have a Tickle Me Elmo? Or that
I,
probably
I,
wasn't on your
I,
radar.
I did not, but because this is kind of funny. I remember being like, "That's for babies," but I had a cousin who was older than me. He was probably like, oh man, how old was he? I mean, he was probably like at least 13, if not older,
Uh,
I think. And he was like, no, maybe that's. Hold on, let me see.
my sister
No,
had one, so she was
he
younger
must.
than me.
I know. I was trying to figure out how much older that my cousin is than me. Anyway, he was like 6 years older than me or something. So he was like 12, and he wanted one. I don't know if he like wanted it as a joke or if he like legitimately wanted one or whatever. But I remember when he got one and was real excited about it, and I was like, this is weird.
Yeah. What was the big deal and why was it such a desired thing? Like it
I
wasn't
think I
groundbreaking.
I think it was just that it I it, my guess is that it probably was just like it was featured on TV or something, or like people, they hyped up because they're like, this is the toy that everyone wants to have, and then it became that or something. I don't know. I mean, I remember it was kind of like a cool thing, but again, I don't think the appeal of it was very broad. It's like for little kids, but then it was being bought for like everyone.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It was very annoying from what I remember. Like,
Oh, it was,
it
yeah. I mean,
literally had
it was
3 cycles.
yeah. So yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, Tickle Me Elmo was I presume pretty much everyone that listens to our podcast, if our stats are to believe, is basically our age. But I know we do have a few listeners that are younger. But basically, Tickle Me Elmo was a stuffed animal of Elmo from Sesame Street, and you would squeeze his stomach, and he would go, and he would like shake around and pretend like he was laughing, and that was it. That was all it did.
I just can't believe that was a viral product. I was trying to think as I was watching this, what Buzz-saw Larry was supposed to be. I thought of Stretch Armstrong, but I feel like Stretch Armstrong probably predated this, right? Maybe it was like a reference. I thought of Stretch Armstrong just like from the name, and also the fact that it was kind of just a wacky thing that, just broke open and spilled corn syrup all over.
So, I mean, I guess I am pretty sure that the reason he's called Buzz-saw Louie is because he's a deus ex machina that comes into play.
Yeah, Chekhov's gun fires Chekhov's buzzsaw. It certainly plays in there. I thought it was maybe a reference, like a passing reference to Stretch Armstrong or something like that.
I think it could be it could be like G.I. Joe, Stretch Armstrong, anything like that. But yeah, I think it's definitely just because they're like, later on, they're tied up. How am I going to get them untied?
Yeah,
the toy's got a buzzsaw.
To be fair, I had an X-Men Apocalypse who did have a buzzsaw arm as well. Because Apocalypse in the X-Men lore can change his hands to be whatever because of his mutant powers. So I did actually have a X-Men with a buzzsaw arm, and that was the first thing I thought of when I watched this. I was like, oh, that's just like my Apocalypse. Now, I lost that arm at my friend Brian's house, so I no longer have it, unfortunately. So I have a one-armed Apocalypse in my X-Men toys collection, but it was a buzzsaw.
So the at this point, the evil guy, Mr. Nezer is his name. He was like, "Hey, why aren't any of these kids whining?" And he goes and realizes that they have heard this commercial and they have decided that they understand the true meaning of Christmas now. And he's like, they're going to ruin my Christmas. And he's like, so he goes to the studio and he captures our intrepid heroes and he ties them up. And what he's going to do is that he is going to like fire them on this sled that was used to deliver the toys to a town. And it had very cleverly been alluded to multiple times up to this point that there was a certain town where a bridge had collapsed. And it is heard once at the end of the commercial where it says, we'll deliver to anywhere except for this place because the bridge collapsed. And then earlier, right when they find the doll, Larry says, it's a good thing we didn't go down there. The bridge collapsed. And then right when he's trying to figure out where to send them, Larry says, I don't care where you send us, as long as you don't send us to here, because the bridge collapsed. And he's like, let's send you there. And the thing turns, and the chute that they're going to go down has like a big caution tape over it. And I was like, why was it taking this guy this long to figure out where to send him? It's like they've clearly marked it off as not safe. But he's like, I don't know where to send them.
I don't think he really cared. And even though the bridge being out, it just may have been a minor annoyance to them. But as always, the villain gets caught monologuing to himself. Yeah. So he tells their plan of what he plans to do and what his motivations were, except he gets interrupted by the good guys who the family members come by and, they happen to show up and they found their way to the studio. And, that's kind of the big,
So the townspeople, and by that I mean the 5 families that live in the cul-de-sac, they show up and they're like, hey, we're here and we believe what the commercial, what they told us, and we're going to give you what you deserve. And the guy's like, he's like, oh no. And then they're like, give it to him. And it's a present. And he opens it up and it's a teddy bear. And he's like, oh, I always wanted one of these when I was a kid. It's the classic Christmas thing where he didn't get this when he was a kid, and so he grew up to hate Christmas or to try and destroy it. So
Very Grinch-like.
He immediately changes his tone, and he's like, "Oh, of course I'm gonna let you guys go," and he's like real excited about it. And in doing so, he accidentally bumps the launch button and sends them out down the chute towards the bridge that's out. And so he immediately redeems himself, and he's like, "I'm going to save him." And so he like immediately gets on a sled and starts chasing after them. And the people that are on the sled, so it's Bob, Larry, Junior, and Buzz-saw Louie. And Buzz-saw Louie realizes, as the Deus Ex Machina of this story, I have a buzzsaw for a hand, and I can cut us free. And so he uses his buzzsaw to cut the ropes, and then he says which I think was the funniest part of the entire video. He says, "Quick, everyone that's got hands, start tying." And then it deadpans to all of each character's face individually. Junior, Bob, Larry, where they're just looking like, "Come on, man, we don't have hands." And then it cuts back to him, and he says, "Well, I guess that means me." And he starts tying up the ropes. And then as they get towards the place that's gonna go towards the bridge that's broken, he makes a lasso and he throws it over a tree, and then he like Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back, where he's flying around the AT-AT to try and wrap it up. They swing around the tree like that, and they're saved. And you'd think that this is where the story would end, but it doesn't, because even though they're safe now, the evil guy, Mr. Nezer, formerly evil, he's still going down. He can't stop, and so Buzz-saw Louie is like, "I've got to save him." So he gets back onto another sled, and he uses his buzzsaw as a booster. He puts it in the snow and uses it to propel himself down. Now, when Mr. Nezer had launched himself to try and save them, all of his loyal penguins came with him. And so Buzz-saw Louie and these penguins are able to Mr. Nezer goes off the jump at the end, and they all go off. But Buzz-saw Louie is able to propel himself down fast enough that he grabs Mr. Nezer by the belt of his pants, and then all of the penguins grab him by the ankles, and then they're each holding each other by the ankles all the way up, and they're able to save everyone is saved from going over the cliff. And then the grandpa that's from telling the story shows up with a truck and is able to use a winch to pull them out.
Thanks. Grandpa
yeah.
is the hero of the day. That was I don't know if it was implied to be exaggerated, but the grandpa definitely showed up in all the perfectly key moments there,
At one point, he also says, they went to see a very smart man. And the granddaughter says, "Who is that?" And he's like, "Me, of course."
I think it was exaggerated in grandpa fashion. We should take him as an unreliable narrator. Just saying.
In my experience with my own grandpa, they tell incredible stories, but how true they are varies from story to story. Then the last thing that happens is they basically say and everyone lived happily ever after, and they all exchanged gifts, but they weren't focused on the gifts. They did exchange them, but they weren't focused on them. And then they say something and Buzz-saw Louie tried to have his buzzsaw surgically removed and then decided not to, and now he makes furniture. The end.
Yeah. that was a weird part too. Like,
Yeah.
I get it was supposed to be comical, but
Yeah.
I mean, come on, it saved his bacon,
Yeah. Also,
twice.
he can just retract it at will. He doesn't need to have it like taken off. It's not like it should be. I guess I should make it clear. It's not that his hand is a buzzsaw. It's that he has like a buzzsaw that like folds out from his forearm and then can be used. Kind of like in Assassin's Creed when they have like the hidden blade that like comes out of their wrist. It's like that. He like flips it out and can use it, and then he can put it away.
Yeah, it's pretty reasonable. It seems like he has full control over it, and
Yeah, it doesn't need to be removed.
And nobody else in this universe has hands. So, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is the king. And in the land of no arms, the one-armed guy is the king. Like, I don't get that. Even though, not ignoring the total utility, if he chopped off his buzzsaw hand out of spite, like, he still has an arm enough, more so than everybody else, that he would easily be the conquering king
Yeah, he's
of any land
honestly.
he wanted.
His job, rather than making furniture, could just be like picking things up.
Yeah, or
like
tying things.
Stuff.
Yeah, this whole thing would be, they would be over if they had constructed, a wire fence around this TV station, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what are they going to do? They can't go under it, they can't go over it, and they can't tie it down. So, boom, great security, great physical security.
But yeah, and that's how the story ends. So that is the Veggietales Christmas special, the toy that saved Christmas.
All right, so quick review. Like, Jared, what are your thoughts? Because I kind of mentioned before, I hadn't seen this one before, and so part of it is that there's really no nostalgia for this particular episode. Some of the things I liked the fact that it was kind of wink and nod in universe. I think there were some funny moments and jokes that made me chuckle unexpectedly. The characters, obviously, I think were pretty referential. For me, the cons, I feel like it kind of was a very basic, generic Christmas story. I really can't, I feel like other Christmas stories tell that story and meaning of Christmas moral a little bit better than this. It's just this one kind of was slightly more explicit about Jesus, compared to like, I don't know, the Santa Claus or something like that. You know what I mean? And it really didn't feel like the songs really hit and connected. It was definitely written kind of as a musical, and it didn't really hit home as something that really would be
there was another
playlist or anything.
There was another song they sang called "Grumpy Kids" that Mr. Nezer sings, which is as memorable as you might remember, or sorry, as memorable as you might think. In that I forgot it until just now when I looked at my notes. So, I guess what I would say about this episode is like, there are better Christmas things. And there are better Veggietales episodes. Yeah. But if we're so I guess what I want to say is like, if we're talking about Veggietales as a whole, which I this being the first thing about Veggietales we've done, Veggietales rules. It was awesome. I loved it as a kid. I thought it was so cool. I still think it is pretty neat. I think their animation has gotten better. I hope. And really, like, that's the only thing I could say about it. Like, it's just like looking back now, the animation is rough, but like at the time, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I thought it looked awesome. I thought it was great. I like looked forward to if they were going to play Veggietales at church, like in children's church. So Veggietales is a 5 out of 5 all day, every day. Okay. For this particular episode, I would say is probably like a 3 out of 5 for Veggietales. I think there are much better Veggietales episodes. I thought there were things that were genuinely funny in it that I liked. And I know that it's skewed to, I think Veggietales is like, kind of for a younger audience. And I think it presents the morals and things that it's trying to get across very clearly for a young audience. I don't think that it'd be very clear for them to like take away what they want to take away. You wouldn't have to be like, did they understand that? Like, was that clear enough? I think it would be. So I think it has a lot of value in that. But like I said, I think that just for this particular one, the songs in it were not particularly memorable, and the plot was kind of like, nothing special. But in terms of VeggieTales episodes, it's probably just like average. But in terms of like whether or not VeggieTales is awesome, VeggieTales is a 5 out of 5 all day.
I think it was, for me, a 2 overall, and in
A 2 for VeggieTales episodes, or you don't like VeggieTales?
And I know I like VeggieTales. VeggieTales is a 4. It's not a 5 out of 5. I really did enjoy it, but I think their high points kind of are outweighed by some of the more forgettable ones. Like when it's at its best, it was at its best. The peak Larry Boy, and it. From what I remembered, is they made more after I stopped being interested in it. Maybe that was just I grew older and grew too old for it, or I didn't have the same connection to it before. But I just felt like it didn't really continue the hype after that first, magic for the first little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression there's more after. There's a lot more after this.
There's definitely more. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're still making VeggieTales, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's definitely more after this. But I mean, the way I kind of look at it is I think that VeggieTales is kind of like their age range is kind of like 10 and under, maybe. Mm-hmm. Not that, older kids or people couldn't enjoy it, but I think like that's like their target audience is like 10 and under, because I kind of remember that as like being the time when I was like not quite so interested in it anymore. Like when I became, in like 4th, 5th grade, I was kind of like not quite so interested in it. I thought there were cooler stuff, but yeah.
I guess let me explain myself here. So I think the best children's shows.
Before you in the comments, Mike.
Yeah, I know. I can feel it
right now. They're lighting the torches.
I don't want to get sent to vegetable hell. Okay, please don't. But so hear me out. I think that the best children's animation, movies, things like that are something that has a lesson that kids can get, but there's also enough for adults to have references that they only adults get, but the kid, it still makes sense within the story. Let me give you a quick example of VeggieTales, in my opinion, at their best, right? The Grapes of Wrath. That's something that's only funny to adults who know the Grapes of Wrath as, the famous story of the Dust Bowl and so on and so forth. But for kids, they're grapes and they're upset, right? That's like funny to an adult that still engages the kids in like a simple lesson, but it's also sort of self-referential. And there's a few of those moments in here with like the tax person and like, stuff like that. That's kind of funny towards adults, but it was really only a wink and a nod. And there weren't really a lot of opportunities for that to flourish. In terms of the plot, it was like so simple. And I honestly think it was like VeggieTales Jr., just because there's almost no conflict. Like you even said it. It was like the problem was solved as soon as we identified what it was. And then you had the Larry Boy song break, and it didn't really, the entire conflict there is no conflict. It's just there's a big Twilight-esque fake out at the end of it where it's like, we're safe. No, we're not. We're safe. No, we're not. Oh, there's one more thing that we have to worry about. Boom. It was kind of simplified, and I get it's a half-hour episode. There's not much, but it did a lot of like, when I think of like an adventure of like different scenes of different places that they go, the pirates who don't do anything is very adventure-y. You use your imagination. And here it very much felt like a bottle episode to me, where it pretty much all occurs in the narrative of the storytelling and in the toy factory. And I get that there are some references to the other Veggieverse, but for something that as a kid you want to inspire imagination and think about what you can do, I just didn't feel like it really connected on those. It felt like it was really self-confined, and at the end of the day, it simplified it. To your point, for kids probably 10 and under who can't really think, okay, where are they now? Where is this? But it didn't really strike that imagination funny bone that, you're trying to think about that. You reuse these characters you already knew. You don't need to know anything about their backstory. Every character was someone you already know, just different. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm the bad guy that you always see. I'm just Nebuchadnezzar, but not.
Yeah.
It didn't
I'm
really
his,
provide
I'm
a
his
treat.
cousin.
Yeah, right. It just seemed like a little bit lazy where, I just figure they pumped it out just because they needed to have
Yeah.
something. It was hot. Everyone wants, people will buy it just because it's a Christmas thing and they're in the spirit. I just didn't think it was great. I was happy to watch it again, and there were things like that I liked about it, but like I said, really, it was kind of lackluster. And for me, the perfect Christmas thing in the Christian sphere, I don't think it would be that. I'm trying to think of what I would put in place of this, like for that age range. I really can't
Yeah.
think of anything that comes to mind right now. Like I'm thinking Frosty the Snowman. You
Well,
know what I mean?
what I'll
Like,
say is, I think I, I'm not sure how explicitly Christian this is, because like I know the little drummer boy maybe,
yeah,
because he's going to play his drum for Jesus. But also, I feel like Adventures in Odyssey must surely have a Christmas episode.
yeah,
So maybe something like that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe next year. We'll say this, listeners: what is your favorite, like Christian Christmas special? So, like, do you like Adventures in Odyssey? Do you like Do you love this episode of Veggietales? Is there another Christmas episode of Veggietales? Is there something else? Is there a Bible Man Christmas or any sort of other thing like that you're really into? Let us know what the best piece of like Christian media for like Christian specials is. And maybe next year for Christmas we could do that one.
Yeah. I'm open to it. There's got to be better. In overall,
Yeah.
like I said, I wasn't my favorite. I was happy I watched it again. There's some funny elements in it. Overall, though, I need a better recommendation if I'm going to sit kids in front of this to keep
Yeah.
their attention, especially because now you have to compete with so much. I just don't know that I would be able to do that for the kids in youth group today.
And yeah. All right. So I think we that's it for most of our thoughts on the thing. So we can do real quick just to be succinct here. Let's give our rating for VeggieTales as a whole, and then for this particular episode of VeggieTales. And Mike, what should we rate it out of 5? 5 what? Buzzsaw hands.
Sure, 5 Buzzsaw hands. I think I said this already, but I think it's VeggieTales as a series is a 4. Not perfect, but the high points are really, really good. And really, when you compare it to the rest of Christian media at the time, I think it was head and shoulders above. And that's why it kind of got some of that mainstream praise, because I think it was smart. It was clever. Maybe 4, 4.5. I can't give it a perfect 5 just because of things like this that were like, okay, they're cashing on the VeggieTales name. The high points are so high, but I know that there's a lot out there that I really just kind of lost interest in. So 4 to 4.5 VeggieTales total. This episode really 2 to 1.5, honestly, if I'm really thinking about it. So
And so yeah, mine's going to be 5 Buzzsaw hands out of 5 for VeggieTales as a series. I loved VeggieTales. Like I said, I always was like, it was like a real treat if it was going to be played in children's church. I was very excited. And like I said, we only had one VeggieTales VHS. It was the Larry Boy one, but I remember like we went to like the Christian bookstore and I like begged my mom to get it for me. And I know that VeggieTales isn't perfect piece of media, but it is something that I have like a strong nostalgia for, and I thought it was really cool at the time. Like I said, at the time, I thought the animation was amazing, and it like blew my mind and stuff. Like, but so I like it a lot. I think it's great. I think it's a great piece of content in the Christian sphere. And then for this episode, Like I said, I think it's middling. It's average. It's a 2.5 or a 3. I thought there were parts of it that were funny. I thought the joke of everyone with hands start tying. I thought that was really funny. I thought the IRS thing was funny. It was entertaining enough for me that I wasn't like. I was probably like, all right, well, I don't need to watch this again. But it wasn't like I was like, oh, I can't believe I have. There's 10 more minutes of this. So yeah, that's our final judgment on the Christmas special for Veggietales, the toy that saved Christmas. Like I said, we may revisit other episodes of Veggietales down the road. If you have a favorite one you think we should do, let us know. And Mike, where can they do that? Where can they reach us to be able to tell us what episodes of Veggietales to do next?
Good question. You can hit us up on our socials on Instagram at Youth Group Reunion Tour, on Twitter at YG Reunion Tour. You can send us an email, youthgroupreuniontour@gmail.com. If you want to check out our other sites, such as our Reddit page, we do have an r/subreddit. You could also hit us on our Yap page, so y.at/ and these are all emojis, cool, church, raise hands, guitar. I think the Yap page is still there. It has links to join our Discord, Reddit, the more social interaction ones. If you'd rather just send a private message on Instagram or Gmail, we'll definitely hit that as well.
And if you let us know and you want us to, we'd be happy to read it on a future episode, give you a shout out. And so Mike and I, we are recording this virtually right now, and we in the past have had issues doing our sign-off line when we're not in person because we've been out of sync. So Mike, what do you think?
And now we have the same microphone too.
Okay, so do you want to give it a try again, or do you want to just have one person do it? We're gonna give it a try. Okay,
we're gonna do it. This is a new year. We're gonna end season 1 of Youth Group Reunion Tour. Wishing everyone a Merry Christmas in the spirit of Christmas. The true meaning of Christmas is that we can do the outro at the same time.
All right. So, Mike, do you want to start it, or do you want me to do it?
Sure, I'll start it.
Okay.
Hold on, I forget what we say. It's to get you on the flip side, right? For some reason, I thought there was a lead up to it. All right, you start it, and I'll do it.
All right. Until next time, we'll catch you on the flip side.
Was that better?
No.
Yes, it was.
No, not for me. It didn't look like it.
All right.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. See you later, guys.
Bye.
Check this out.